I'm calling the Menagerie. And this will be a talk between Dusty and CA Carlson. And CA is going to talk to Dusty. They've already been talking, and they're going to talk a little bit about Dusty's background and how his teaching and how that sort of affected his work. I'll just go on a tangent and talk a little bit about Little Animals. But Little Animals has been up and running about 2 years now, and my name's Jeff Kinsel. So I run the space, and a lot of you are familiar here, but it's run on a membership. So we have a membership. There's a card if you want to be a member. You can be a member for $0, or you can be a member for some other dollars. The money all goes to the rent, so we actually pay for the space. And occasionally we do some other kind of fun things. We have cocktail parties and we have outings. All right, I'm not used to talking too much, so anyway, so this will be about 20 minutes to 30 minutes, and it should be a lot of fun. I'm really glad you're all here, so welcome, and I'm just going to let you go for it.
Okay,
Right.
I'm just going to go for it. Well, as we get started, first, can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Amazing, great. So, we have the luxury of talking tonight surrounded by works that you chose to bring into conversation with each other, Dusty. So tell all of us a little bit about what's on each wall and what it feels like to have these works looking at each other across the room.
I conceive of them as two different series. These back here were conceived as a result of the devastation that Helene left behind. I took photographs the next day as well as several days later, and have worked and allowed myself to change things as the work developed and dictated. So there would be, I started off with charcoal, these two pieces back there, charcoal and vine charcoal, as a matter of fact, very soft, it gets very dark, and white acrylic paint. As the project developed, I felt that just the charcoal and white, the work dictated other materials. So I got involved in pastels, some watered down acrylic paint, and that was pretty much it in terms of developing those. There still are 3 or 4 or maybe 5 pieces that we couldn't get up on the walls. There wasn't enough room, so we selected these as the main things. So that's kind of the idea behind these pieces. These were a time in the 90s, actually, that I reached a point where I needed to loosen up. I just wanted to spontaneously explore some different ideas. I had some interesting papers. A couple of these, that kind of greenish, and then the very light one at the end is on handmade Mexican paper, and they were squares, and squares are difficult to paint in because they have no direction, either vertically or horizontally. So it was a challenge to kind of play with that kind of format. And I did those. There's a lot I don't remember about it. So I can't get too specific. But I was just very spontaneously exploring color and just working very spontaneously and quickly. And then I put them in the drawer and really haven't looked at them for 20 years, over 20 years. And I did pull them out at some point, especially when Jeff offered me the opportunity to show here, which I thank you and Diane very much for what you're doing here. Not too many places you could put up unframed paper pieces with push pins.
With the specific push pins that you wanted.
Well, they were, but that's another story. We probably don't have time for that. The figurative things were done in the 90s too, and Gwen Dean, who is here, she and I ran figure drawing sessions in the Holden Art Gallery where we both taught. And it was about just working. There was no teaching. It was great. So we got to participate as well. So the figurative things really came out of that in the 90s. And working with the charcoal, and white acrylic paint, some cases red. So that's kind of the background of these two series. And I conceived of them as very different series. So new work, old work.
But it's interesting to see how they are in conversation with each other, with the material, the technique, all of that. You know, Jeff has asked us to pull some other things out of the drawer, including your history as an artist and your art to making this work. We had the opportunity to talk last weekend, and you grew up with a father who was a writer and a newspaper man, a mother who was an artist who had studied medical illustration.
She started medical illustration in Chicago, but really freaked out with at night going down and getting the cadavers ready for next things. So she was taking drawing classes at the Art Institute of Chicago, and that's where she really got grounded in the fine arts, and then quit the illustration.
And how much did that infuse your childhood? You know, to what extent was she encouraging you? Was she teaching you as an aspiring artist?
We were 5 kids. There was less teaching, but she painted, and I still have 2 little paintings I did when I was about 9 or 10 years old, copying some of her work. So what developed for me was, I certainly didn't call it art. It was just something that I did. And I did take art classes and had a fairly good grounding in high school. But it still wasn't art. It was just kind of what I did.
Well, but then you really began your art education in earnest when you were in the military.
That's right.
Maybe. Can you tell us about that self-education that you created?
I was on a submarine, and we would go out to sea for 60 days at a time. And the job that I had was keeping up the charts and so I had kind of a private area where I could work, and I spent my spare time reading art books, doing a lot of drawing. We had encyclopedias on board, and I made a pre-Columbian backstrap loom and took apart burlap bags as weaving things. And so I was, and we had a mimeograph machine there, and I was doing some things that I now understand were monotypes, and I had no idea what those were. But I was doing that, so I was experimenting with a lot of different things, and had projects. I called them projects, not art at that point.
But this was during the Vietnam War, right?
It was.
And where were you stationed? Or where did you, what area did you
port?
target? Yeah.
What port? We were home based in Honolulu, but the boat was down in Guam. And we had a 2-crew concept. It was one of the missile boats. And every 3 months we would have a change of command and rotate. So we would be out for 3 months. They would be back in Hawaii going through school, and R kind of thing. So a lot of that was in Guam.
What did your colleagues on the submarine think of? Did they know what you were up to in the chart room?
We had some pretty progressive sailors on board. It had been to UCLA and Berkeley, and somewhat college educated, but no, they were, but not officers. So partial college, and sometimes we would meet in the coal lockers. And we collected poems from some of the other sailors, and I still have those. And we would talk about the poems. And
Yes. You had a little art school on the
we
submarine.
had a little art school going. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
extraordinary.
A little art group going.
What did you get out of that experience, or how do you think you developed as an artist from that time?
Well, on one of the later patrols, I was working, and all of a sudden it kind of hit me. And I said to myself, I'm going to commit myself to art. Mm-hmm. And right away I said, oh, that's corny. But it stuck. And I applied to art school, Art Center College of Design, at that time in Los Angeles. And it has since moved to Pasadena. So it's been there for a long time. So when I got out of the Navy, Nancy and I traveled in Europe for a period of time, and then came back to Los Angeles. And then I did undergraduate and graduate work at Art Center.
And what was that environment like? What was the approach to art education there in the context of primarily a design school, right?
Yes. I got a lot of foundational things, color, perspective. A lot of the people went into Hollywood and did set designs, that kind of thing. And a lot of it was based on problem solving, or at least that's what I took from it. But there was also a group of fine artists. My real mentor was Lorser Feitelson, who his work, Lorser Feitelson, He was born in 1998, and died in 1978, right after I graduated. But and he went to Europe to study and had that very traditional background. It was based on the figure, and went through the development of modern art. And in fact, the term hard edge painting was coined at a show of his in 1945 by the art critic Jules Langdon in LA, not Ellsworth Kelly's. You hear him getting a lot of the credit for hard edge painting, but Vitelson and his group had developed it well before Kelly.
And what was he like as a teacher, as a mentor? What kind of feedback did he give you? What kind of assignments did you get? What was the day-to-day of the education like?
A lot of it was based in art history. The projects that he would assign, he always coupled it with art history. So I got a good art history background through him. And I think something very telling about him is nobody's work ever looked like his. So he taught in a way to give you the foundations and develop your own voice. So he was a wonderful, wonderful teacher.
As you began to discover your own voice in that context, what was it? What did you...
Still working on it.
Good, that's great.
Still working on it. It's, and I have shown slides of my work, which dates me, it's not digital yet, but slides of my work, and it looks like 2, 3, 4 different people. Because I'm really interested in exploring different ideas and have never been concerned about style. I think if you genuinely are involved with what you're doing, it becomes authentic. And how can you not be yourself? And I think an example of that is a drawing of Raphael's, of Leonardo da Vinci's work. And we look at it now, and there's no way that it's not Raphael. So he's not copying Da Vinci. It's his work.
It's his work. He's looking at the other thing, but what he's doing is his own.
Is his own. And
how do you get out of your own way? How do you, given all of the art history that you studied, all those many months with the encyclopedia on the subject, you had so much in your head. How did you take that in and then clear it out of the way so you could achieve what you're talking about?
I guess thank you, Nancy. She could better answer that than I did. I guess quite honestly, it's trial and error and trying everything, trying anything. And it's kind of like throwing spaghetti in the wall and it sticks. It's yours, what falls down. Try again.
So how did you bring that to bear on your teaching? How many years did you teach at Warren Wilson?
33 years, yeah.
So you had a lot of time to practice teaching.
Yes, I did. I did. I think sometimes successfully, sometimes not.
What perspective or what approach did you bring to teaching art students?
Well, some of the Vitelson and some of the other people around him that I really admired and really gave me a lot. I used those as examples. Never to want anyone to look like my work, but to, again, to give foundational assignments and problems to solve, and really looked at it as problem solving. So I guess that's.
When you talk about problem solving, is it like when you were taking design classes and you would be given a brief and say you have to, I think something you mentioned was having to do a work with dolls in it, many dolls?
Well, that was one assignment. I think another one that was more problem solving had to do in a design class with coming back with a solution that expressed early morning playground. So color came into play, shape, value, space, all of those things came into.
Is that the kind of assignment you would give to your own students at Warren Wilson?
Yes. More open kinds of assignments. I remember one assignment that I gave, I put different kinds of objects in a paper bag, and they couldn't see the thing, and only by reaching in and feeling it, they would draw it.
Oh my gosh.
So that kind of assignment, and then pretty traditional drawing, with your eyes shut or with your non-dominant hand and upside down, all of those kind of pretty standard drawing
Trying to develop the technical facility for them to be able to do whatever it is they wanted to do.
And more importantly than anything was to learn to see. And you can tell when somebody's not seeing in their drawing, because there's a real disconnect between what's there in their drawing. And students would get pretty upset with me at sometimes when I would tell them, well, you're not really seeing what's there, not what you think is there, what's actually there.
Having your loyalty be to the thing you see and not to the idea that you have of the thing you see. Right.
Preconceived.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did those 33 years of teaching shape your work, shape your own work? What did you learn from your students?
I learned a lot in the sense that somebody might come up with a problem, and I could devise an assignment that might address that. So I had a lot of freedom at Warren Wilson. It was a wonderful place to teach. So there was that aspect, and then I would be working in my studio, and I'd think, oh, this would be a cool assignment for the students.
You would look at something you were working on and say, let's have them do this too.
Right, or at least the idea, because I never did want it to look like my work, but there were. So I'd say that's kind of critical.
I think that when we were talking the other day, you mentioned that the process of pulling together this show has given you opportunities to reflect on your arc as an artist and a teacher, how it all accumulates nights and adds up. What are some things you're thinking about these days in the wake of pulling this together?
Mortality. It's given me a confidence that in pulling all this together, kind of a confidence that just a confidence that, well, maybe I've done something. Maybe I've got something. Something good going. So I'm very positive. I don't know, I think artists don't always have great self-confidence. Or maybe it was just me. I'm the only one. No. But and I have gone back all the way to those original little paintings that I copied of my mother's that I realize I've been making images for 70 years or so.
I wish those were in the show too.
I still have them.
Well, Dusty, thank you for walking through the whole arc with us. I want to make sure that we are allowing plenty of time for questions.
Sure.
So, anybody got questions?
Yeah, I do. Dusty, you talked about your experience with art history, and I'm wondering who you fell in love with from the history of art that you either ended up having to ignore because you wanted to make your own work, or that touched your own work in some way.
Probably my first love was Van Gogh.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went to see, I had a bunch of Van Gogh books and just ate them up and just loved his story, loved his work, his drawing, and painting. Daumier was someone, Caravaggio and that kind of chiaroscuro, light and dark, and the patterns that created, just the light shapes and dark shapes, and yet they were still grounded in something.
You chose the best. You chose the best.
Well, that was an important thing for me, is to look at the best, at least that culturally we've considered the best. Why do any less than the best? Arthur Dove. I connected with Dove very, very strongly, and in fact did my whole thesis on Arthur Dove at a time when he was not very well known. He'd only had one major show at UCLA that Stanton McDonald Wright had organized, and I wished I could have bought some of his work at that point. And we went around the country looking at his work in different museums and so forth. He was from Geneva, New York, and we went to Geneva and met his brother, who was still alive at the time. And everywhere we went, realized that there was a woman who had been there the year before. Her name is Barbara Haskell.
Oh.
Yes, recognize that.
Oh, yes.
Now a very prominent art historian. And in my thesis, I was going to put together a catalog for a show. I couldn't actually do it, but organize it and write about it and so forth. Well, that's what she had done, and I put her on the map, and I put Dove on the map. So Dove was Pantormo, the Mannerist, and that painting of the Madonna with the long neck. I don't know if that's the real, just that kind of exaggeration was just wonderful. And the Christ child in her lap looked like a teenager if he ever stood up. And just all the weird things that went on, that columns that didn't hold anything up. The raft of the Medusa was one of my favorite paintings. To do compositional analysis, that's one thing in my teaching. And I would present a problem. Okay, here's a situation. These people are on a raft. There's one person that's high up on the raft, looking at this tiny little ship way in the distance. Now, do a composition that includes all of those elements, and then we would analyze in a slide the composition. That upside down triangle of the raft looks like it's going to tip over.
It's remarkable education.
Yeah. So anyway, that was, Mary Jean, let me get Tom. You had a question?
Yes, in your 33 years of teaching, because you taught with much more studio, but towards the end of your, I'm figuring things like CAD came into it and AI. So what do you feel is the biggest change, or you just made a point of ignoring those other things and just going forward with what you were always teaching?
I think when I retired in 2012, that wasn't even on the. Well, I'm sure it was.
CAD was.
Yeah,
The
but
computer assisted.
Yeah, I didn't have any association with that. I'm still struggling with just a computer.
You got out while the getting's good.
From Caravaggio to Arthur Dove is quite a leap. One of your favorite artists from the, say, 18th, 19th centuries.
Oh gosh, you get so much from each one.
Unfair question.
Saved by the bell.
In art history, so much, I did teach art history, and so much of classic art history is names and dates and periods and all of that kind of thing. But what I felt, and I did a lot of that, but what I felt was more important is, where to go in the book to find those artists or that information. And then in assignments, we would go through characteristics of that period, and then students would have to come back with a drawing or painting that had those characteristics in it, but applied to their own life. So I can't remember the problem, but I remember a solution. One student came back, it had to do with breakfast and eggs, and eggs in the composition. And I'm sorry, I can't remember what the problem was. But it was that kind of thing that they related it to their own life. And I think hopefully that would stick better than remembering.
I had a good friend who was I must use a bad word, snottily talking about Fragonard. And he said, "Have you ever looked at his work?" I said, "Come with me." And I looked at parts of Fragonard and I said, "They blow it up." that's abstract painting right there.
That's right.
And that single example, and I thought, he's taught me to see again.
I have a question.
Yeah, can you talk about your feelings about how you critique students' work? I mean, you're trying to not like
Right.
put your stuff onto them after
Right.
teaching and just like teaching them foundations and so they can do their own work. But then they do their own work and you have to give them feedback.
Absolutely.
How do you let them be their own thing without you saying, that's terrible?
Yeah. I tried to take good and bad out of the language. And so what I would ask is, tell me what you're trying to do and how are you going about that? And with my experience, I can give you feedback about, well, you say this is what you're trying to do, but I think you could improve it, maybe doing this or doing that with the work, so that it's not a good and bad thing. It's tell me what you're trying to do and I can help you to understand what you're doing and where you can improve it, or you might go in this direction, you might go in that direction. So that kind of thing. Mary Jean, you have it.
Yeah, I was just wondering, when you moved from California to Swanton, were you influenced by the artistry in the area, like Black Mountain College, or the crafts and arts to come here, or did you just find a job?
We actually moved from Hawaii,
Oh,
and I worked in a gallery situation there in Hawaii with supposedly some of the really well-known Hawaiian artists in the islands, and came here, and I was certainly aware of the craft tradition here, and was somewhat disappointed that there wasn't much of the fine arts without getting involved in that whole discussion. But the president of Warren Wilson and his wife, Ben and Betty Holden, they were real guideposts, and in fact, they started what's early, we came in '79, so around that time, they started the Arts Journal. If any of you remember the Arts Journal, and it was a not newspaper, but a journal of what was going on and so forth in the area. And then slowly, more and more people were moving here, and really, there were only a couple galleries at the time, and more people were moving here, and I think the fine arts developed, and there's some amazing artists now.
And I'm developing still.
And developing
So
still.
on that note, maybe we'll wrap it up.
Yeah.
So, how many people are connected to Warren Wilson here? Just curious. And so that 10, that's great. Dusty, thanks so much, and thank you, Steve.
Yeah.